Racism has been found to be a likely motivating factor when police strip searched a 15-year-old black child at her London school. That's according to an official investigation into the incident commissioned by Hackney Council. Details of the search, which took place in 2020, are reported in The Guardian. They write, "No appropriate adult was present during the 15-year-old girl's ordeal, described by a senior local authority figure as humiliating, traumatizing, and utterly shocking, and which took place without parental consent and in the knowledge that she was menstruating. The child was made to bend over, spread her legs, and use her hands to spread her buttocks while coughing, and she is now in therapy and self-harming," according to family members' statements to the inquiry. The girl, who is being called Girl Q, was pulled out of her classroom while taking an exam and taken to a medical room where she was made to remove all of her clothes by two women police officers. The 15-year-old was also told to remove her sanitary towel. Afterwards, she was returned to her classroom where she was expected to complete her exam. The report by the City and Hackney Safeguarding Children Partnership says the search was prompted after teachers called the police. They say teachers told the Review that on the day of the search, they believed child Q was smelling strongly of cannabis and suspected that she might be carrying drugs. On questioning child Q, she denied using or having any drugs in her possession. A search of her bag, blazer, scarf, and shoes revealed nothing of significance. So the teachers found nothing but called the police anyway. That already seems a bit sus to me. And the cops turning up and strip searching the girl is a massive escalation. What could possibly justify such extreme action? Unfortunately, events like this are not rare. Zara Bay, co-founder of No More Exclusions, spoke to Good Morning Britain.
As a teacher and as a parent and as a human being, I'm appalled that any child could be treated this way. And in fact, no one should be treated this way, but children in particular, and in particular in a place of safety, which is what schools are supposed to be. So I feel beyond, I would say, rage about this. And in terms of your question of how could this have happened? Dal has already talked about the fact that there are a number of systemic failures that happen in this case. And what is important about this case is, first of all, to say how horrific it was, but it was only one out of 26 other searches that happened in that borough alone of Hackney in 1 year, intimate searches that involved children. So it is systemic. And out of those 26 searches, 22 led to the police finding nothing.
So there were 26 intimate searches of children in Hackney that year. We can imagine them all being incredibly distressing. Yet in 22 cases, nothing was found. On any measure you could use, how is that worth doing? It's creating so much trauma for what? To find 4 people potentially with drugs. I mean, it's just appalling. It's also worth noting, of those 26 searches in Hackney that Bay is referring to there, it turns out that 60% involved black children and only 2 involved white children. And it gets worse. A Freedom of Information request by academic Tom Kemp has revealed that the Met undertook 9,088 strip searches on children in the past 5 years. That includes 2,360 children under the age of 60. On average, 5 children were strip searched every day by the Metropolitan Police. If we extrapolate from the racial breakdown of strip searches on adults, we can also assume that strip searches of children disproportionately affect black children. Tom Kemp, the academic I referred to earlier, tweeted, "In the past 5 years, the Met Police conducted 57,733 strip searches on black people." So 33.5% of strip searches were conducted on black people when 11.7% of Londoners are black. And the report into child Q's treatment concludes, having considered the context of the incident, the views of those engaged in the review, and the impact felt by child Q and her family, racism, whether deliberate or not, was likely to have been an influencing factor in the decision to undertake a strip search. Now, I know from reporting we've done on this show in previous weeks, we shouldn't be shocked anymore by the Met's behaviour, but this whole incident, I mean, it's just so disgusting. Aaron, what can you even say about it?
There's one statistic which you didn't mention, which is that 35 children under the age of 12 have been strip searched by the Met. Under 12, Michael. I mean, I don't want to be sensationalist about this, but there is a word we use for people who ask children, particularly under the age of 12, to take off their clothes so they can inspect their person. There is a word for those people. And the Metropolitan Police Service employs tens of thousands of officers. You are going to have people in that organization who aren't good people. That's inevitable. That doesn't mean they don't have the right accountability and scrutiny at the moment. And I'm not saying they can't make major improvements, but in an organization that bad, you're going to have bad people who abuse their power. You're going to. The question is, what are the mechanisms in there to hold them to account and to minimize that? And I think giving this kind of power to police officers to strip search children, how certain are you that the people executing this are people that could be trusted around children? It's a safeguarding issue. Michael, if you want to go teach in a school, you want us to do a talk, there are reams of paperwork you need to fill out. Good. To ensure that these kids are safe, that you aren't a predator. And yet we're allowing a police force with a documented history of racism, sexist violence. We're allowing these same people to strip search children. I mean, again, it's one of those things where I think we should probably just ban it. You probably shouldn't allow the police to strip search somebody under 12, whether or not they've got a guardian present. I don't quite understand how that benefits anyone. And like you say, 9 times out of 10, it's ineffective. Even if it was effective, I still don't think it's vindicated. And what are you going to find? A small amount of cannabis? And you're traumatizing a child for that? You're doing something which is tantamount, I think, to sexual assault for that, really? I mean, in terms of appropriateness, is that a transaction that we as a society think is worth doing? You might find some cannabis, so hey, go knock yourself out and go strip search a bunch of kids, which happen to be people of color in London. I don't think most people would agree with that. And again, let's see how the Met responds to this in the next couple of weeks and months. But it's an organization which doesn't take criticism very well. These same people, the sort of moral arbiters of our society, the wonderful London Metropolitan Police Service, probably think, strip searching kids, even when 9 times out of 10 is not effective, yeah, it's a good thing. Because that's the absurd, grotesque, moral vacuum these people operate in. They think it's normal because that's the working environment they're in. It's not normal. Strip searching kids is not normal. It's not normal way to carry on. Look at the way that, for instance, Koshka Duff was treated. Older woman, 30, but the way she was treated by multiple officers, male and female, all willing to lie until there was evidence showing that they were in the wrong. And she was so clearly abused by these people. Once her case got out into the public, people were like, wow, this is disgusting. It's disturbing. The police behave like that? But the officers involved all knew the facts. They don't think it's strange because that's the warped world that they behave in and they live in and they inhabit. So I think, again, it needs a strong fist from civil society, but I think it's going to have to come through politicians. Politicians need to say, look, this isn't acceptable. The problem in this country is, Michael, there is a really hideous relationship historically. It's changing, I think, for the better at the moment, between the London Metropolitan Police Force in particular and the government of the day. Politicians don't criticise the police, but surely strip searching children is a step too far, even for these people. I hope it is. And I hope it catalyses a much broader conversation around the kinds of powers we're willing to delegate these people. I don't think there are any conditions under which you can strip search a 12-year-old. Sorry.
I mean, it is worth noting, yeah. So the people who searched this 15-year-old didn't find anything. All they were looking for was cannabis. Even if they found cannabis, even if they found, enough cannabis that you could supply the whole of Hackney, that is not worth putting someone through that. There were the police officers were there, the teachers were there, everyone there knew that the worst case scenario that this girl had done was that she had some cannabis, and they thought it was worth putting her through that experience. I do find that just worrying about the judgment of these people. These people should not be in positions of authority. Let's talk about the reaction, though, that Aaron, you intimated towards there, because people across the country have been outraged by the case. In London on Friday afternoon, a protest took place outside Stoke Newington Police Station, and it turned into a blockade. And we can also look at the response from the government. This is Equalities Minister Kemi Badenoch.
The Honourable Lady also raised the case of Child Q, and I'm very happy to speak about that. I think it is an appalling incident. I'm glad to see that the Met has apologised. I'm glad to see that the Independent Office for Police Complaints are looking at that. We have systems in place to ensure that when things go wrong, we can right them. What we cannot do is stop any bad thing from happening to anyone in the country at any time. That is a bar, a threshold that is impossible to meet. But what we do know is that everybody is rightly appalled and outraged by what happened to Child Q. That is an example of a country that cares about ethnic minorities and about children in the system, and we will continue to do everything we can to support them.
So let me get this straight. What this horrendous incident shows isn't that Britain has a problem with racism, that two police officers and a bunch of teachers all thought it was acceptable to strip search a 15-year-old just because they smelled cannabis. No, that doesn't say that this is a problem with racism. Actually, the incident shows we are a country that cares about ethnic minorities.
One of the good things about society, and we can moan and whine about all the bad things in the last 50, 60 years, one of the good things is that people are aware of how adults historically have exploited and abused children. And that's something now as a society we're trying to become more open about, and hopefully younger people can feel more able to divulge these things, which were simply not spoken about and repressed in the past. And in that context of saying, well, look, this is one of the really most fundamentally evil things you can do, right? Because you're not even dealing with a consenting adult. You're dealing with a child. They don't understand what you're doing. A child under 12, Michael, they don't understand. The idea that a police officer has the authority to do this over them and not their parent, and the sexualized nature of it, demeaning them, and how that intersects with race. Oh, my God. And this is your response. My personal thing is, look, this is why I would never be a police officer. If I was a senior police officer, an officer said, "Yeah, we strip searched a 9-year-old kid because we could smell cannabis," I'd say, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Who thought that was a good idea?" Right? If you said, "Look, there was somebody and there was a murder and they're hiding a murder weapon." One in a minute. By the way, these realities don't exist. They only exist for police crime writers and people who write BBC series. They try and present that as the reality of law and order and policing. It's not. It's this, right? That's the quotidian reality of law and order policing in London. Is police just sort of giving a bit of a hard time to young working class people of colour generally. That's what they do, and they say we haven't got the resources to solve crime. If you get burgled, you might get a police reference number. If you're a squatter in Oleg Deripaska's house, you're going to get a battering ram through the front door. Probably their colleagues earlier that morning were, strip searching a young person. So this is a deeply dysfunctional institution, Michael. It's a problem in Britain in particular as well, because I feel like there is a huge space for a very sensible, pragmatic conversation around policing where we say we should abolish the territorial support group, right? We should not have the police strip searching minors. Shouldn't be happening. These seem like quite sensible things. And I think whether you're a Conservative, Lib Dem, Labour, old, young, I think there could be real consensus around that. And I think actually the debate right now around policing, particularly on the left, is we're saying abolition or whatever. I'm not saying those aren't smart arguments, but I think we need to, there are real wins here, right? This is sexual assault of young people, right? We can just stick to that. It does betray a much bigger problem, Michael, with the Sarah Everard case, obviously with the well-documented history of racism in the London Metropolitan Police Service. You've got the two sisters who, of course, died, selfies being taken by the police. You've got the WhatsApp messages from, I believe, the Charing Cross Police Station, which were in circulation just a few months ago. There is a profound problem with the London Metropolitan Police Service. Root and branch change is needed, and that's not a left-wing thing.
We probably should say, just because we're talking about individuals, Kemi Badenoch didn't say she supported what happened to Girl Q, but I take your general point that she's part of a government that thinks that strip searching children is a normal thing for the police to do, and this is one specific incident where it's gone wrong. So, yeah, I mean,
Well,
I take the
I'll
broader
come
point.
back,
Just want to be
Michael.
careful what we're implying about Kemi Badenoch.
No, but what the police have done, as I understand it, doesn't appear to have broken the law. So, and the Tories want to keep the law the same. And that law is that right now, I think, like I say, I think it was last year, you have 35 children under 12 are strip searched by the police. And if that's a status quo the Conservatives are happy with, then, you know, that's their business. But that's what they want. They think that's acceptable. I don't. I think you don't. I think 99% of the public doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it was against the law. I think protocols were broken and they should have, you know, for example, told the parents. But yeah, I mean, obviously, completely disgusting what they've done in this case and disgusting what they do systematically to, yeah, as we say, particularly young black people. Strip searching people because you smell cannabis. There is no justification for that in any possible reasonable world.